Throughout history, people have come up with many different ways to punish those who do wrong. From way back in the past to today, there have been lots of ways to punish criminals. If you think being grounded or sent to your room is tough, wait till you hear about these top 10 historical punishments that are so bad you wouldn't want them for anyone, not even your worst enemy. Number 10. The Brazen Bull. The Brazen Bull was a horrifying torture device from ancient Greece. It was a big bronze bull where people were put inside and roasted to death over a fire. The screams of the victims sounded like music to the people watching. It was invented by Perillos for the cruel ruler Phalaris, who even tested it by roasting Perillos himself. The bull became popular for punishing criminals and dissenters, used by Romans and during the Spanish Inquisition. Even famous people like Pythagoras were killed with it. The Brazen Bull showed how cruel people could be when given power, but eventually it was banned as a crime against humanity. Number 9. Scaphism. Scaphism, also known as the boats, was a cruel torture method used by ancient Persians for serious crimes. They would trap a person between two boats or tree trunks, feed them milk and honey until they couldn't move, then leave them outside for insects to eat them alive. This punishment could last for days and victims would die slowly in extreme pain. The Persians believed it was a fitting punishment mirroring the crime committed. They thought it was humane because it didn't involve direct violence. However, it was a terrifying way to intimidate enemies and show how severe their punishments could be. Today, scaphism is seen as one of history's most brutal tortures, showing the extremes of human cruelty. Number 8. Crushing by elephants. Crushing by elephants, also called gungoro, was a brutal execution method used in ancient India and Southeast Asia for serious crimes like treason or murder. The condemned person was tied down and a trained elephant would step on them, crushing their bones and organs. This was meant to be a warning to others and was seen as a form of divine justice. However, some rulers, like Akbar the Great, thought it was too barbaric and banned it. Despite the risks, like the elephant accidentally harming others, it continued to be used until the 19th century. It's now considered illegal and condemned worldwide, but it's still remembered in stories and movies as a ruthless punishment. Number 7. Blood Eagle. The blood eagle was a Viking punishment for the worst criminals. It was incredibly painful and terrifying. The victim's back was cut open, ribs broken to look like wings, and lungs pulled out to create bloody wings. They would slowly suffocate to death. It was meant to be as brutal as possible, humiliating the victim and scaring others from rebelling. In Viking culture, it was seen as the worst dishonor. Only the most unforgivable crimes like murder or treason warranted this punishment. Number 6. Crucifixion. Crucifixion was a brutal punishment used in ancient times to execute criminals and enemies of the state. Victims were tied to wooden crosses and hoisted up to hang in the air until they died. This punishment was meant to scare others from challenging authority. It caused immense pain as nails were driven through wrists and feet, making breathing difficult. Victims would slowly suffocate over hours or days. They were also publicly humiliated, left naked for all to see, and their bodies left to rot as a warning to others. Romans used crucifixion to suppress religious and political movements. Number 5. Racking. Racking, also known as stretching, was a cruel punishment used in medieval Europe. It aimed to make victims confess by pulling their limbs out of their sockets. Victims were tied to a wooden rack and stretched with ropes or chains. This caused extreme pain, often leading to permanent injuries like nerve damage or paralysis. Sometimes, victims were tortured until they confessed to crimes they didn't commit. Racking declined in the 18th century with the rise of human rights ideas. Today, it's seen as barbaric and is no longer used. Number 4. Molten Gold. The molten gold punishment, also called pouring molten gold or golden shower, was a cruel punishment used in ancient times. It involved pouring molten gold onto a person, causing severe burns and shock, leading to death. This was done to deter others from committing crimes. Victims' screams could be heard for miles as the metal burned through their bodies. It was used as both punishment and torture to intimidate others. While no longer used, it's remembered in popular culture, like in Game of Thrones. This practice was barbaric and inhumane and thankfully abandoned in modern times. Number 3. Flaying. Flaying, also called skinning, is a punishment where a person's skin is removed. It's been used throughout history for punishment and torture, to deter crimes, extract confessions, or seek revenge. Tools like knives or hooks are used to remove the skin, which might be displayed to scare others. In some cases, the skin was used to make things like clothing. One famous case was Aztec ruler Montezuma, who was flayed by Spanish conquerors. In France, it was used for treason, like with Robert Francois Damien, who tried to kill King Louis XIV. Flaying was also used to force confessions, like during the Spanish Inquisition. It's seen as a barbaric and illegal punishment in most countries, but it still happens in places with poor human rights. Number 2. Nose cutting. Nose cutting was a brutal punishment in ancient Egypt, aimed at humiliating and stripping a person of their identity. It didn't matter their social status, anyone could be punished this way for crimes like adultery or theft. Trained executioners would use knives to swiftly remove the nose, causing immense pain and leaving the victim disfigured for life. Besides physical pain, victims endured shame and isolation, affecting their families too. Though abolished as Egypt evolved, its impact on society remains, reminding us of past cruel punishment systems. Number 1. Dunking stool. The dunking stool, also called the cucking stool, was a punishment used in medieval Europe and colonial America, mainly for women accused of gossiping or moral misconduct. The accused woman would be dunked repeatedly into water, publicly shamed and humiliated. It was thought to control women's behavior and purify them. Critics said it was cruel and violated human rights, often targeting innocent women. Over time, its use declined and it was abolished in many countries. Today, it's seen as a relic of a more brutal past and isn't used in any modern legal system. It shows how punishment has changed over time, from cruel and arbitrary to more humane methods of maintaining order in society.